Hello, hi, I'm Sid from Dr. Stewart Productions, and I want to share something with you today that's kind of enjoyable topic for me to talk like in front of a camera to hopefully a lot of people. And I'm going to talk to you about why you should read books to your children. When our children grew up, I read multiple books to them for like years and years and years. Then I capped it off with reading most of the Bible to them out loud. And I'm talking about out loud reading, not you watching them read, but them hearing you read. So we're talking about regular books. Here's a little book called The Story of Baby Jesus. Here is a book that's pretty neat. Most everybody has these kind of books from Dr. Seuss. Anyway, I hope you read to your child, and let's talk of a few reasons why it's so important for you to read to your children. First of all, children, when they see you use a book and you put the book in their lap as you read to them, they learn how to use a book. You start at the front and you turn the pages like this. There's page numbers most of the time, and there's words, there's pictures galore in this particular book. But the basic book your child learns how to use. So that's important. Also, number two, they develop a love for books. They will carry the books with them. They love them. I remember our little boy, Wesley, when he was growing up, him and my wife went to a library, and he came out with no books at all, but he was crying, and he said he just could not decide what books to pick up, what books to check out, because there were so many of them there, he wanted to read all of them. So he was crying because he couldn't narrow it down to 3 or 4 books, like the library had a limit. But your child will develop a love for books. That's better than a love for computer gadgets and video games. Your child will also, number 3, develop a love for adventure. You read to them Robin Hood, or read to them Treasure Island, or any of these other great stories like Moby Dick, and they will develop a love for adventure. And you'll begin to stir their imagination, and they will enjoy this quite a bit. Because remember, you only have so much time with your child. He's 1 year old and 2 years old. Before you know it, he's 3 and 4. And when our children were already 2, 3, and 4, I was reading to them out loud. Again, one time I read a book to my little boy, and after reading it, he said, "Again, Dad, again." So I read it again, and after I finished the second time, he said, "Read it again, Dad, again." So I read it the 3rd time. Then I read it the 4th time, and he said, "Again, Dad, again." And I said, "No, Dad's too tired." He wept. Oh, big crocodile tears coming down off his cheeks. He wept. He cried. So he was 3, 4. The kids are 5, 6, 17, 18. By then, you're not reading to them. Remember that. They're hopefully reading on their own. So you only have so much time for them. So use it with a book. Number 4, your child will develop a greater attention span when they sit and listen to you read a book. Later in a classroom, when the teacher's lecturing and all the other students are filling around and they're used to a 20-second commercial or a 20-second segment on a video game or TV program, your child is paying attention because they have a greater attention span. Don't you think that will help them? Next, they develop a larger vocabulary list. How many words from a regular typical book, let's say again like Moby Dick or Robin Hood or Treasure Island or The Secret Garden or Little House on the Prairie, those kind of books, or even the Chronicles of Narnia, how many of those vocabulary words will your child hear and see in context of that sentence? Quite a few of them. So when your child goes to school, they will have hundreds and hundreds or probably thousands of more vocabulary words embedded in their thinking than the average child. Okay, next, as you read to them, they will learn how to pronounce the words correctly. They won't listen to a child pronounce them incorrectly and learn how to pronounce them incorrectly. They will learn from you and learn how to pronounce them correctly. Then also, since it's just so much fun reading books, it produces a real bonding between parent and child. When my son was a very little boy, 5 or 6 maybe, he said to me, he said, "Dad," he said, "one of these days I'll be 16. And I said to him, because he used to crawl in my lap and we would read books together, and I said, "When you're 16, you won't want to crawl in my lap and read a book." And he said, Dad, on my 16th birthday, I'm going to come over and I'm going to get in your lap. Okay, that's a father and son thing. That's cool. And so years passed. He remembered it. And on his 16th birthday, I saw him grinning at me. He came over, and by then he was 5'11" or whatever, and he sprawled across my lap, and I gave him a big hug. Don't tell me that reading does not produce a bonding between parent and child. Next, your child will be 3 steps ahead of most other children in your classroom or in their classroom in school. When they get to kindergarten and first and second grade, they will already be a few steps ahead of most other children because they've heard these stories, listened to you read, and they see reading is enjoyable. Reading is the door to adventure. So they would be more apt to read and learn how to read much faster. I would also believe that your child is more apt to attend college later. His greatest ambition of life is not just to get a pickup truck and wear camouflage clothing, which there's nothing against that. A lot of people do that are very intelligent. But he will want to go to college and maybe have some ambition and become a lawyer or a doctor or some kind of a other graduate that is good for society. Your child will also experience unforgettable joy as they sit there and listen to you read, and it develops a child's imagination. One time when our little boy was very young, he was on the carpet coloring in a coloring book while I was reading some story out loud to all 3 of the children. And I stopped and I said, Wesley, are you hearing what I am saying? Are you listening to me read? And he said this. He said, Dad, everything you read I can see in my head. I'll never forget how he said that. Everything you read I see in my head. So good reading does develop a child's imagination. And then your children's will learn reading skills much earlier than the average child because they've listened to you read and they follow along and listen to you. Reading to your child can also calm your child. You have a child with some emotional problems because of a marriage problems or some other difficulties. Read to your child. Calm them. Okay? It have a calming effect. Just like when a pastor reads Bible verses in front of a congregation, it ought to have a calming effect in that congregation as they get ready to hear him teach what those verses mean. And then as you read to your child will learn how to interact with adults. It becomes a common thing for them to talk and ask questions because while you read books, maybe they will ask questions. They will do so much better in school, I am convinced. But on the other hand, if you don't read, your child will not read, or more or less be less apt to read. If you do not have anything to do with books, neither will your child. So folks, take time to read to your children, read to your grandchildren, buy books for Christmas and their birthdays and any other event that you can think of. Give them books. One more tip. When our little boy was around 1 and he was still in the crib, once he went to sleep at night, my wife would take books and put them all around that crib, all around the inside of the crib. So when he woke up the next morning, he was looking at pictures of books, and he would naturally want to take them and open them. Maybe he was a year and a half, 2 years old. He wanted to pick them up and look at them, and that's a good way to introduce a day to your child is through the avenue of good books. So take time to read to your children. This has been great. I've enjoyed presenting my little talk to you. Share it with others. Please subscribe to Dr. Stewart Productions. And check out my other videos. I hope you can find something you'd be interested in. There's shop videos, woodworking, music, ministry, Bible, just a whole potpourri of things you could watch on Dr. Stewart Productions. God bless you richly. And concerning reading, be sure you take time to read the best book, the most important book of all, and that is God's Word.